You look at a map of your past. The timeline of your ancestors seems complete, but it is not. You're looking at a puzzle missing half its pieces. For decades, you were taught a simple story. An ape stood up in the tall grass. It learned to walk on two legs. It picked up a rock. It learned to control fire. Eventually, it became you. The story is comforting. It has a clear beginning and a clear end. But does this clean line of progress feel real to you? History is never a straight line. The truth about your origins is far messier. It is hidden in dirt and bone. Most of it is completely missing. For about 300,000 years, people who looked exactly like you wandered the earth. They felt joy. They felt fear. They built complex lives. But almost all of their physical evidence has vanished into the soil. You might think we have found most of your ancestors. We have not. The fossil record is incredibly fragile. Most bodies do not become fossils. They decompose naturally. They are eaten by scavengers. They return their nutrients to the earth. To become a fossil, a body must die in the exact right conditions. It must be buried quickly under sediment. It must avoid all predators. It must avoid acidic soil that eats away at calcium. It must wait millions of years for someone to find it. How many branches of your family tree have been lost to acidic soil? Consider the vastness of the planet. Africa alone is enormous. It is the cradle of human life. Yet most of the fossils we have come from just a few specific regions. They come from the Great Rift Valley. They come from limestone caves in South Africa. But what about the massive jungles? What about the expansive deserts? What ancient people lived and died in places where bones simply dissolve over time? You're only seeing the people who were lucky enough to be preserved. You're missing millions of others. Let us look at a real discovery that changed everything. In 2013, an explorer named Leif Berger sent two cavers into a narrow underground system in South Africa. The site is called the Rising Star Cave. They squeezed through a dark passage merely 7 inches wide. What they found in the dark chamber shocked the scientific world. They found thousands of ancient bones. These bones belonged to a previously unknown species of ancient human. They called them Homo Naledi. This species had a very small brain. Their shoulders were built for climbing trees, but their feet looked exactly like yours. They were walking around Africa at the exact same time as your direct ancestors. Before this discovery, they were completely missing from history. Nobody knew they existed. If this entire species was hidden in a dark cave just a few decades ago, what else is waiting in the dark? You must realize that the Earth is a giant graveyard of lost species. But bones are not the only way to read history. You carry a map of the past inside your own body. Your DNA is the instruction manual that builds you. It is a biological archive of deep time. In the early 2000s, a scientist named Svante Pääbo decided to do something impossible. He decided to read the instruction manual of a dead species. He extracted DNA from the ancient bones of Neanderthals. He sequenced their entire genome. He proved that your ancestors did not just replace the Neanderthals. Your ancestors met them. They survived the Ice Age with them. They had children with them. If you have ancestry outside of sub-Saharan Africa, you carry Neanderthal DNA right now. It influences your hair. It influences your skin. It even influences your immune system. How does it feel to know a ghost lives inside your cells? But the story gets even stranger. A few years later, scientists found a tiny finger bone in a place called Denisova Cave in Siberia. The bone belonged to a young girl. When Svante Pääbo and his team read her DNA, they were absolutely stunned. She was not a modern human. She was not a Neanderthal. She was something entirely new. We call them the Denisovans. We have almost no physical fossils of them. We just have a few teeth. We have a heavy jawbone. We have a single finger bone. But we have their DNA. Their genetic ghost lives inside modern people in Asia and Oceania. Some people in Tibet use Denisovan genes today to survive at extremely high altitudes. How can a species shape your modern biology when we barely have enough of their bones to fill a shoebox? So let us recreate a day in that Siberian cave. You are sitting near the mouth of the Denisova Cave. The wind outside is freezing. The Ice Age landscape is unforgiving and harsh. You look around the fire. You see a face that is familiar but different. It is a Neanderthal. You see another face. Is it a Denisovan? You see your own people. You are all sharing the same fire. You are sharing food. You are surviving together. You are not separate species fighting for total dominance. You are a blended family trying to stay warm. For most of history, you were not alone on this planet. You shared it with other kinds of humans. Why did you think you were the only ones who mattered? The missing parts of history are not just empty spaces. They're full of shadow populations. Scientists call them ghost lineages. When researchers look at the DNA of modern populations in West Africa today, they see genetic material that does not match any known ancient human. It does not match Neanderthals. It does not match Denisovans. It comes from an entirely unknown human relative. A ghost species. This ghost species lived and bred with your ancestors just 50,000 years ago. We have no bones from them. We have no tools from them. We have no names for them. The only proof they ever existed is written inside the blood of living people. What other phantoms are hiding in your genetic code? The mystery deepens when you leave the mainland. You travel across the ocean to the islands of Southeast Asia. You arrive in Indonesia on an island called Flores. In 2004, researchers digging in a cave found something impossible. They found a tiny human skeleton. It was an adult female, but she was only 3.5 feet tall. They called her Homo floresiensis. The media called her the Hobbit. She had a brain the size of a chimpanzee. She hunted miniature elephants on her island. She used stone tools. She lived there while your ancestors were already painting in caves in Europe. How did her ancestors cross the deep ocean to reach that island? We do not know. The boats are missing. The evidence of their journey is gone. You find a similar mystery in the Philippines. In 2019, scientists found strange teeth and bones in Calao Cave. They belonged to another unknown tiny human. They named them Homo luzonensis. Their finger bones were curved. They were perfectly shaped for climbing trees. They lived on an island surrounded by deep water. They were there at the same time as your ancestors. You have to wonder how many other islands held completely different versions of humanity. How many small, isolated worlds were washed away by rising sea levels. You often measure ancient intelligence by stone tools. You find a sharp rock, and you assume that was their only technology. But this is a severe distortion of the past. Stone survives. Everything else rots away. Wood rots. Bone rots. Leather rots. Plant fibers rot. You are missing almost the entire material culture of your ancestors. Imagine what they could build with wood and twine. They made nets. They made traps. They made complex carrying bags for their children. They crafted wooden spears balanced perfectly for throwing. We know this because occasionally a wooden tool survives in a peat bog. But 99% of their genius is completely missing. Do you really think a sharp rock is all they had? Agriculture is often called the greatest invention of humanity. You're taught that farming gave you civilization. It gave you cities. It gave you writing. But agriculture is a trap that destroyed much of your past. The anthropologist James Sussman has written extensively about this illusion of progress. When your ancestors started farming 10,000 years ago, they stopped moving. They built permanent villages. They started eating mostly grain instead of wild plants and meat. Their diets became terrible and restricted. Their teeth rotted in their skulls. Diseases spread rapidly through their crowded villages. But more importantly, farming erased the old ways of living. The hunter-gatherer lifestyle that sustained human beings for hundreds of thousands of years was almost entirely wiped out. Look at the work of Richard Lee. In 1963, he went to the Kalahari Desert. He studied the Jew-Hoansi people who still lived as hunter-gatherers. He found something that shocked the modern world. They did not live in a constant state of starvation. They did not work from dawn until dusk. They only worked about 15 hours a week to gather food. The rest of their time was spent resting. They spent it talking. They spent it visiting relatives. They spent it playing games. This was the reality for most of your ancient history. You had leisure time. You had strong communities. Agriculture stole that time from you. It replaced it with endless, backbreaking labor. Why did you trade your freedom for a field of wheat? The stories and the cultures of those ancient nomads are completely missing. We have their stone tools. But a stone tool cannot tell you what a mother sang to her dying child. It cannot tell you what they called the constellations in the night sky. Think about what you lose when a language dies. You lose a unique way of understanding the universe. Before agriculture, there were likely thousands of different languages spoken across the planet. Almost all of them are gone. They are the missing sounds of history. They are the vanished philosophies of your ancestors. When you look at ancient cave art, you feel a connection. You look at the stunning paintings of lions and horses in Chauvet Cave in France. You look at the geometric patterns scratched into red ochre in Blombos Cave in South Africa. You're looking at a silent movie of the past. The art is undeniably beautiful, But the voices of the artists are missing forever. You can see their handprints pressed against the cold stone wall. You cannot hear their names. You do not know the myths they were illustrating. You do not know the gods they were trying to appease. Are they painting hunting instructions, or are they painting their dreams? The history of human evolution is not a tree with a single strong trunk. It is a messy and tangled bush. Many branches grew out. Many branches died off completely. Some branches wrapped around each other and merged. You are just the last surviving leaf on a very complicated plant. The missing parts of history remind you of a profound truth. You are not the pinnacle of an inevitable journey toward perfection. You are merely a survivor of a chaotic and unpredictable world. Your ancestors walked through a world filled with deep mystery. They walked past giant creatures that no longer exist. They shared the earth with human cousins who faded into the shadows of time. They experienced climate changes that reshaped the entire globe. They survived the brutal, freezing temperatures of the Ice Age. They survived volcanic eruptions that darkened the sky for years. They did it all without modern technology. They did it with fire. They did it with stone. They did it by relying entirely on each other. How long would you survive if the modern grid collapsed today? When you sit in a crowded modern city today, you are surrounded by noise. You are surrounded by concrete and glass. You feel completely disconnected from the deep past. But the past is not behind you. It is inside you. It is running through your veins. Every time your body fights off a cold, you might be using an ancient Neanderthal gene. Every time you take a deep breath in the mountains, you might be using a Denisovan adaptation. Your anxiety in the dark is an ancient survival mechanism. Your craving for sugar was meant to keep you alive during winter famines. You're a walking museum of missing history. The missing pieces of your past are vast and silent. We do not know how they first crossed the deep oceans so early in time. We do not know the full story of the ghost populations hiding in your blood. We do not know what they dreamed about when they slept under the ancient stars. But the search continues every single day. Every time someone digs in the dirt, the story might change completely. Every time a new genome is read, a new ghost might appear. You are not a finished product of evolution. You are an ongoing investigation. You look at a map of your past. The timeline of your ancestors is not a finished map, but a puzzle still waiting for its missing pieces.